Welcome, everybody. Super excited to have this a wonderful panel here to talk about commodities. We're kind of going to touch on things that people have not maybe experienced before, and these gentlemen here have worked really hard at getting us to the next level when it comes to trading. I'm talking about 24-hour trading, 7 days a week, where anyone around the globe can actually participate. This is a great opportunity for anyone that's trying to get involved. And yeah, I don't have the time. Maybe trading hours are while you're at work. Well, this changes the game. This allows people to actually have that opportunity once again. But before we get started, I'd love to go around the room here and get a few intros so you guys know who they are and where they're coming from. Crispin, if you don't mind, let's kick it off with you, sir.
Of course. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me back. I'm Crispin. I'm based in Zurich in Switzerland, arguably the center of commodities trading and finance technology in the world. I get involved with energy transition investing, particularly interested around uranium, and currently I work on a variety of structured products and different investment vehicles, and I'm an advisor to metals.io and uranium.io.
Phenomenal. Let's keep going around the room here. Giorgio.
Hi, everyone. You hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So I'm Giorgio. I'm a lawyer qualified in 2 jurisdictions. I'm in blockchain since 2017. I'm one of the founder of KlimaDAO, which it was at the time the biggest platform for commodity trading of green commodities, 24/7. Before even like the acronym RWA was invented. So I'm quite familiar with tokenization at large. And I now support actively as advisor and for the legal side and tokenization side, Noam unpack, which is helping having the metals.io ecosystem growing with like an offer of strategic metals, which maybe we will talk later. But Ben for sure is more is the right person to talk for metals and commodities and how the market works. So I think I said enough.
Oh, I appreciate it. Well, Ben, he's talking you up here.
I know. Thanks for that, Giorgio. So yeah, Ben Elvidge. Most people know me, I think, on these sort of live streams. I lead metals.io and uranium.io, XU308, and all things alternative assets within Trilitech, which is the adoption hub for the Tezos ecosystem. So really delighted to be here talking about the metals.io platform and business that we launched 2 weeks ago at TesDev in Cannes, which was really exciting and good to see some early traction, and looking forward to getting into this conversation.
Oh, this is going to be such a great one. Now, something that happens a lot of times is that people start looking at commodities and they're like, wait, where do I go? What do I do? I mean, the market is huge, especially when it comes to metals, right? I mean, you got gold that skyrocketed. Everybody started talking about, and you get used in what, jewelry? Sure, but also a ton of electronics gets that use of gold. And also people use it as a hedge a lot of times. So that's like the number one thing that people are always looking at. But on top of that, you have a lot of rare earth metals when it comes to building EV batteries, turbines, and everything in between. Then you add the uranium aspect of it, which is also a metal. Well, you got nuclear power. There's just a lot going on when it comes to these commodities. But I got to ask you guys, when it comes to maybe a macro view of all of these different metal categories, is there one that you guys feel is most, I'd say, underappreciated versus others based on, how important they are to so many different industries? Like if you had to pick your top one, your long-term play, I guess you can say, what would you pick and why, right? Like what is it that they're not giving that type of metal or commodity the time of day? Is there something missing? Is there something people don't know about? What would be your top pick? And please, anybody, feel free to jump in.
I'm happy to start then. It's a very good question that you ask, and I think in general, we're entering a commodity super cycle. I think where we are in the world, fragmented world, and the constraint around oil and gas. I think there are many commodities that are very investable for the next 3 to 5 years, I believe. So, you mentioned gold. So you think about disruption in monetary supply. Definitely gold is a great investment, right, to hedge against that. Industrial build out, as the world kind of deglobalizes and different countries want to build out their own industrial base. Absolutely, things like palladium and copper and silver are very relevant there. Copper and silver around electrification, absolutely. You think about kind of the new grids that have to be built as electricity is generated more in the kind of a single place, a big generation that needs to be transmitted. So those are really good assets, good commodities to invest in. You make me pick one. Since you make me pick one, I've got to pick uranium. And I think the reason for that is really twofold. I think number one is, commodities come down to supply and demand. In uranium, on the demand side, it's very quantifiable about how much demand there is currently and what the forecast is over the next 20 years. The demand it's a very binary, it's a calculation. Nuclear power plant, how much uranium they need to generate the power, how many nuclear power plants are being built. It's all very, you can go on the various websites to see exactly what that is, the restarts. So it's very quantifiable, which is not generally true with some other commodities. And then on the supply side, we know that the supply is trying to capture because of the long-term bear market in uranium. The supply is trying to catch up. So we know that the supply side is constrained. But I think the biggest factor is of why I pick uranium is because of the change in sentiment we've seen. Literally, you can see it even the last 6 weeks with the Iranian war. The change in sentiment is dramatic over the last 2 to 3 years. So it's an underinvested commodity, and that's why I believe it's the best single bet, if you make me pick, over the next 2 to 5 years.
I love that. I mean, a lot of people haven't had access to it either. So talk about
Correct.
being underserved. A lot of people haven't even had a chance to get in there. Anything from you, Giorgio or Ben?
Ben, go first, please. I want to be the
So
last.
look, I understandably had uranium on my list. Not to talk my own book, but I absolutely think the uranium thesis, as Crispin brilliantly outlined there, is absolutely one that remains top of mind for me. If I had to pick one that's a bit more obscure for sort of, and one metal that's got maximum asymmetry, and sort of asymmetry in this context, I mean, where awareness is lowest, but like industrial necessity is highest and the price discovery opportunity is greatest. So i.e. the gap that metals.io is built to close. I'd go for one such as like dysprosium, which is like completely irreplaceable in high temperature magnets. You're seeing demand for that grow 7% every year, but supply is essentially controlled by a single geopolitical bloc, read China, and there's zero liquid investment product. So that's sort of how I look at it in terms of very modest downside, because you've got that industrial necessity in terms of demand, but enormous upside if you can make that investable and if supply tightens and there's further export controls. So it's a bit random, it's very niche, but I think it's one that if I think about those elements and things that we look at in metals.io as to why we built metals.io, it really is about something that's absolutely critical, strong demand profile. Sounds similar to talking about uranium, not unsurprisingly, but is significantly underinvested because there aren't any real opportunities to do so effectively. And so that's sort of my pick. I'll stick with the random one.
No, I like that. Giorgio, I'm putting you on the big screen. Go for it.
Thank you so much. So it's I don't know if I'm the best person which is placed to answer to this question for sure. Crispin and Ben, they know a lot more compared to me. But what I can say is that, for instance, with rare, we literally eliminate that kind of question. Like there is like a basket of metals which is curated already, so you don't have to do. I mean, of course, you have to do your own due diligence, but there are like already like specialists and advisor who like they are long experienced in this market, and they say, okay, this is the best basket for rare earth metals at the time. So even easier for a person that just is interested in having exposure, but he doesn't want to, do all the study and everything. So I think that metals.io, especially with rare, allows also like to have like more base of people that exactly they do not have the same knowledge of Ben, for instance, and Crispin. So we solve also that kind of problem. So my suggestion it would be, of course, maybe my opinion is tainted, but go for rare because it's already a basket, and you can also diversify, and you can not have a risk for only one metals, but you have a basket. So that's the definition of a basket itself. So I'm not that good at explaining, but you get the idea.
No, it totally makes sense. Going back here to uranium real quick for both of you, Crispin and Ben, how does uranium differ from a lot of these commodities? Because it's more than just a commodity for a lot of people, right? We're talking about energy security and how things are changing so fast when it comes to the need for more electricity, the need to power. I try to hold back from this before the 30-minute mark, but AI. Right, like we're just all over the place using more and more power everywhere, and uranium supposedly solves that problem. So how does it differ from the just being a commodity?
I think there's again three kind of key themes there. If I can jump in, first is what's a typical commodity, and then we can kind of contrast that with uranium. Typical commodity is this very cyclical demand for it. So I don't know if you eat chocolate or you follow cocoa prices, but you can, if you do some investigation there, you can see like the definition of a commodity in cyclical demand. I'm based in Switzerland, so like it's all about chocolate and lakes and watches. So anyway, so that's a very much a commodity-based market, right, where the demand is cyclical. Number two is the price is very the demand is very sensitive to price. The price goes up, typically the demand will go down. And then lastly, on the supply side for the commodity, it's very flexible. So you can kind of scale up if you're short a supply, a particular commodity, it can scale up. So you think that's a typical commodity. Now we kind of contrast that with uranium, kind of the 3 points that I mentioned. The first one is it's not cyclical demand for uranium. We know it's policy-based demand, as we call it. We know, as I mentioned earlier, exactly what the demand is, and we can quantify it very exactly. If you're running a nuclear power plant, there's no substitute. You have to have uranium. Point number two, price. Running a nuclear power plant, the cost of the fuel is a very small percentage of the overall cost. So there's what we call price inelasticity. If the price of uranium goes up to $200 a pound, those nuclear power plants, those fuel buyers still have to buy it. So the price is very inelastic. And then lastly, on the supply side, it's not a flexible supply response. It's a very constrained supply. So that's why uranium is a commodity, but it's not a typical commodity in it. And the way it trades and the way it acts is very different from a typical commodity.
That absolutely makes sense. Anything to add there, Ben?
No, I don't think so. I think Crispin's done a pretty brilliant job of explaining it. I think, I think just in short, the way I'd summarize everything Crispin said is doesn't trade on just industrial demand, right? There's sovereign energy security and reactor fleet expansion dynamics that if you commit to building a nuclear reactor, you're not making the decision to not have fuel for that nuclear reactor anytime in the next 20 or 30 or even 60 years, dare I say. So yeah, you've got government policy that almost puts a floor in that demand rather than demand being this discretionary variable like you would have in cocoa or other commodities.
Yeah, with cocoa, it's like, hey, it's too expensive. Let's add milk to it. We're no longer doing dark chocolate. Can't
So
do
don't
that with a
forget the
Nutella
Italians
after.
invented the chocolate with hazelnut, the almighty Nutella, right?
That's
So it
I
was
mean
a
that
different crisis.
that's a great. No, you're absolutely
I
right. I
know.
mean, Nutella was invented because of the war, right? They
I know.
could not get more cocoa, so what did they do? They add a bunch of palm fat and sugar and
Yeah.
sprinkled a little bit of
Yeah.
chocolate on top and said,
There you
"Hey,
go.
you got Nutella."
It's true. I'm Italian, so I know. As like, Crispin is so yes.
No, that's such a great way to actually explain it, because I mean it's the everyday things that kind of get people involved in these markets, right? I always talk about how people should really focus on investing on things that they know. So I know you mentioned doing your own due diligence. I know about a lot of different things because I get interested in the investing aspect of it. So same thing with chocolate, right? The reason why I know chocolate is because I might have invested in chocolate back in the day. It's not doing so hot over there. I'm much better off with uranium and everything else we got going on here. We do have somebody backstage. Alexander, I'm just brought you up, but I think your camera's still off. As soon as you turn your camera on and your mic, we should be able to hear and see you. There you are.
Hello. Yes, I'm walking actually, so my apologies. It's a bit not a studio setting.
Oh, I wish I was walking.
I wish
well,
I
who
was
knows?
walking too, actually. Yeah.
Let's pretend I have a little bike under my desk, so I'm always walking. You know what? Let me get right into it with you, Alexander. Can you give everybody a little TLDR on who you are, where you work, a little bit of your background?
Sure. My name is Alexander. I'm the CEO of VNX. VNX is a Liechtenstein-based regulated platform for tokenized assets, mainly precious metals at the moment. We have VNX Gold. I believe we're probably the only one who are doing tokenization of the precious metals in Europe. We've been a partner of Tezos for the last couple of years, I guess. We enabled issuance, generation, withdrawal, and deposits on Tezos some time ago. And now we're quite happy to have VNX Gold launching on Etherlink and metals.io.
Fantastic. You know what? I'm going to stick with you, Alexander, here. When it comes to gold, because I know that's part of the things that you work on, how does gold's safe haven status kind of help people understand and really try to build their portfolio in a more, I would say, not only safer way, but with an asset that is very popular and traded quite often? Is there some benefit to having gold in your portfolio?
Look, I'm not in I'm not in the business of investing. We're generating, basically we're supplying whatever is demanded by the customers. The only advantage is that our gold is stored in Switzerland and Liechtenstein, and once the customers have 1,000 tokens, so 1 kilogram, they can request a physical pickup, and we allow this. So in that sense, we are probably, or our tokens are differentiated from the kind of paper or tracker gold. They're really backed by physical gold, but whether people believe that the prices will go up or down, for us is pretty much irrelevant. What we're looking for is we're together with Tezos Foundation to develop the kind of the new economy backed by the real physical gold. So the idea is to have the pools, different pools, lending, borrowing vaults, and then ideally to have perpetuals based on physical gold tokens.
All right. So you said something very important here, at least to me, right? It's the ability to actually acquire the asset that you're investing in. A lot of times people, say, oh, you're trading X, Y, and Z, but are you really, if you don't have access to it, if it's, like you said, just on paper? I guess let me back it up a little bit. You know what, Giorgio, if you can help me with this, you said you've been here before RWA, warning was even invented. How would you describe an RWA then?
Well, we were not talking about RWA. We were talking about tokenized commodities. So RWA is like a buzzword that came after, Like, let me give you, for instance, like just give me 1 minute. So it was for the word RWA, it was even like easier at the time because we started with carbon credits. So carbon credit is like an immaterial commodity, okay? So the moment that you put it on chain, you tokenize like the commodity, but it's not really like something which is physical. such as, metal. There's nothing more physical than metals, right? So even if we can discuss that it's tokenize the certificate or whatever. Some other people, I'm not talking about us, but some others, they say, we're tokenizing a contract that gives you the ownership of a metal. Let's say that, we tokenize the physical item. It's totally different compared to having a commodities which is immaterial in the first place. So in 2021 there was not this name, but when everyone started to get into the market with tokenized commodities, at that point it was forged the name RWA. So how can I define the RWA in a different way? It's simply like a tokenized commodity if it's defined the commodity. Otherwise it's just a tokenized and just put the name after, tokenized real estate, tokenized car, and everything. So that's my point of view, of course. What I can say is that, but maybe we can discuss this after, is that there is a huge opportunity and there is a huge market, and the opportunity is so important, and I really want to stress it every time that I have the chance to speak in front of or with other professionals or in front of a public, of how important it is to try to bring all the commodities on chain. But maybe we can discuss after, because the market is so important and it takes away the gates that I really want to express myself for that. So
you know what? I want to get right into it. So I'll open this up for everybody. So talking about the tokenization aspect of things, what barriers are we breaking down, with tokenization? I mean, I know I mentioned the 24/7 trading. Is there anything else that, that allows newer investors or investors that don't have, a large sum capital ready to go to kind of enter these markets? And I'll open this up to anybody.
Let me tell you one thing for me, which is very important. Ben already is laughing because he already.
I see the Italian coming out. I'm loving this.
No, but let me explain you. But the most important thing that not everybody thinks about, because maybe they don't know about markets, or they never trade, or they just they just see other people trade, or they just give money to someone and this other person trades for them. Let it be an institution or a person or whatever the agreement that they have, is that these kind of markets are gated by default. So it's almost impossible to get inside unless you're a professional, or you're a trader, or you're an institution. But let me just go, let's talk about something very easy. Everybody says, oh yeah, I'm buying Tesla stocks, for instance. It's not that easy. You need to have a bank account. The bank account needs to have the connection with the World Trader or whatever the app. You need to do the KYC. You need to do the KYB if you're a company. You need to fund the account. You need to buy the account. You need to hope the account, the order gets filled in. Just this, and the stock market is almost accessible to anyone, especially now with the derivatives, with the CFD, with anything, with apps. Even if it's one of the most easily accessible market, it's still complicated. There's still a gate at the entrance. These markets are even more gated. It's very, very, very hard to understand where to buy. Second, it's very, very hard to be accepted by the seller, because maybe the seller doesn't want to deal with you. Third, maybe it's very complicated to speak with the seller, to communicate with the seller. Let me give you a quick example. I was the president of a Japanese entity at Klima. There are some traders that they still deal with fax. I'm not joking. So they say, I want to buy your commodities. First, you need to speak the language, for instance, okay? Because it's very hard that Japanese people speak English, or they even take your call. Let's say that they take your call. Let's say that they speak Japanese. You have to place an order. You need a fax. Who uses fax machine? In Japan, they still uses it. You get my point? So it's very, very, very complicated. No. It makes you laugh. It makes my laugh. Do they really want to work with us? I say, yeah, no, they use fax machines still. So anything is very complicated, while with this technology it's instant. You literally go on the page and you access to the map. The moment that you're in the page, you're connected wallet, but let's less technical. You're already accessing the market. www.metas.io. I'm already in the market. I'm in the global market. That's amazing. Then we can discuss also the other things. I don't want to take the stage for the price discovery, transparency, and everything. We're going to discuss after. But these markets, especially the one of the metals and these kind of commodities, they have huge barriers and huge gates. And once have been defined as disruptors and technologists, we are barbarians at the gate. Like literally, there's the gate, there's the market, and we are barbarians. It's amazing to be a barbarian at the gate, because you are actually explaining to the market, and you're actually showing to the market how the market can be more efficient. Just eliminating the gates at the entrance. There's much more to talk about, but this is something that I really, it's my heart, and I really want to express.
So look, I 100% agree with everything Giorgio says. In terms of barriers, for me, it's really across three things, right? Minimums we talked about all the time, and uranium, that was a big factor. Minimums are quite straightforward, right? You reduce the entry barrier from having to have millions of dollars or six figures in the case of some of these metals, plus all of the operational aspects. But I think as I look at that with a slightly different lens, sort of fragmentation is also a pretty big issue, right? If you're a family office or a commodity focused fund that wants a diversified exposure across different metals, you need separate relationships with separate dealers, specialist procurement channels for uranium, bespoke arrangements for PGMs, physical dealers on the gold side, and nothing at all for rare earths, pretty much. You've got KYC with all of those, as George was saying, custody, insurance, operational overheads. So actually doing that is quite a big uplift. You've got to be pretty committed, and there's quite an operational overhead for managing that. And then the final thing with sort of tokenization is that I think hours and global reach matter more than people think, even in things like gold, right? So physical commodity markets, as folks may know, certainly folks on this call know, deeply fragmented by time zone and jurisdiction, right? So LBMA hours, COMEX hours, regional bullion dealer hours. We're just talking gold here, by the way, which is one of the most liquid commodities and investable commodities. And so if you think for an investor in Asia trying to respond to a Friday evening Fed decision, traditional markets are closed. What do? Actually making them available 24/7 on a tokenized venue fundamentally changes that reaction function and has huge benefits for the market at large, I would say. And so that's kind of what I think the vision for metals.io is delivering on, is collapsing all of those barriers. So you have a unified platform across those assets, very low minimums to no minimums, continuous global markets. These are not, it's small right now, but I think actually when people realize what this is, they're not marginal improvements in the market infrastructure, the structural changes to what physical commodity investment can look like.
All right. I'm going to just put you right out there, Crispin.
Yeah, just to add to what's been said already, I think in addition, there's an education, I think Ben alluded to it as well. There's a big education part as well, right? Yeah, if you want to invest in commodities today, you've got to understand the cocoa market, the palladium market, the uranium market, the gold market, and they're all different, right? So providing that standard, so it's all, as Ben said, very fragmented. So to provide a standard access way, a standard way to access it, absolutely, like it's a huge change, dramatic improvement in the industry. And as I said, as a part of that, like providing knowledge about the different commodities as well. So I know a big piece of metals.io is that knowledge and education on the different commodities.
Giorgio, you were so fired up about this that I got to come back to you, man. When it comes to, like these metal traders, or just in general, having that experience, right, as coming from the traditional metals market and looking at what this tokenized version of it can look like, what would you say are some of the best changes? And I do mean changes like that make it safer, that make it more transparent, that allows retail to essentially operate at almost that institutional level that these people with the big money are operating in.
So for me, as I said, thank you so much for giving me the occasion to say something that I'm very passionate about. So as we said, the most important thing is like removing the gates. There is a second thing which is very, very important, which is price discovery. Why? You might think that like some commodities, you can buy them, but the moment that you can buy them, it means that they have a price. Okay. The thing is, if the market is so fragmented, if the market is so difficult to access, if the market has like overheads and cost and custody and everything, can you know exactly how much is the price? How many times you've been to a friend and the friend told you, oh, I found this car for example, $10,000. It's very under market. Why? Oh, because you forgot the GST, because you forgot the VAT, because you forgot the delivery, because you forgot this and that. So there's so many things that most of the time you don't have like the clear view, especially in case of like stuff that requires like a physical custody. Okay. But let's go back to this point. Some commodities, they really do not have the price. Let me give you an example. I go back to carbon credits because I worked 5 years with carbon credits. Carbon credits, you don't know exactly how much are the price because it's so complicated. There is no market. There is no like unified exchange that if I tell you now, oh, I bought a carbon credit for $1, it can be like the best deal of my life. It can be the worst deal of my life because you don't know exactly what it is. And for the metals, it's the same thing. As like it's so fragmented, it's so difficult to access, and it's so complicated to speak directly with the broker. Every broker has his own price because, of course, like they have different costs, they have different offices, they have maybe like an old stock that maybe has a higher price or a lower price. So blockchain and all the platform and what has been created is completely eliminates that. So it gives price discovery, it gives transparency, so you know exactly what you're buying. And in some cases, but that's a little bit more complicated, maybe we can keep it for another session, it's like the liquidity pool price discovery. Why? Because like some they are just like as per stock. So let's say order book. Some others, like they utilize the system of the liquidity, the liquidity pool in order to understand what's the price and the market price itself. And it does it instantly, even with 1, 10, or 1 million orders. So depending on how deep the liquidity pool is, at that point, you can know exactly, of course, in an average, the price that you're paying for the commodity. This is amazing. Nobody has ever thought about it before. And that's, in my opinion, one of the, of course, like I spoke already about the gates, but that's one of the most important I can say evolution in this kind of market that nobody has thought before. But of course, like we did, and that's what we're building.
Oh, I love hearing that. We're talking about this platform, this Metals.io platform. Ben, do you think you can like maybe do a little show and tell and kind of get us in there and show what this thing actually looks like?
I mean, I can. What do they say? Never do live demos and work with animals. So let's see how this goes. Cool. Let me share this tab. Perfect. Can you guys see this?
Not yet. I'll get it on screen though.
Not yet.
Here we go.
Perfect. So look, it's as simple as metals.io. When you come to the homepage, again, as I always say, kudos to our incredible brand and creative team. They do a phenomenal job. You can see all the information you could hope to see in terms of, why the platform exists, who our partners are. We have a blog where you can learn a little bit more about metals trading generally, and also the specific assets that are on the platform as it stands right now. And if I just click start investing anywhere, I'm gonna have to switch tabs, I would expect. So share this tab instead, so you can see here, and this has taken me into the app. So if you're outside of the UK, like yourself, Action, or even Giorgio and Crispin, you'll have a live AI-driven news feed underneath here as well. But you can see these are the 3 assets that we're live with right now. So uranium, the VNX gold, and obviously the rare token, which is the rare earth metals or strategic metals basket. It's as simple. I'm going to sign up as if I was a new user. So bear with me a second. I've got a not dodgy at all temporary email address. So if I click it, sign up, the big thing that we've built here is, we recognize there are multiple different audiences. So if you already have a wallet, if you've got an EVM compatible wallet, you can click connect. I'll show you that in just a second, so I can show you how the trade flow works. But if you don't, and we recognize the appeal of this is also to those folks that maybe don't have a wallet or don't feel comfortable having a wallet, they can just pop in an email address. And so this is my temporary email address here. So that let's get that in here and see if I have got my code to log in. Give me one sec. It's just loading up. Here we go. So I'm just going to copy that in. And I mean, so let's look at uranium. So if you click on any of the assets, that's it. You've signed up. So if you need to, you can deposit to fund your account, and you've got different options here. So if you come in from fiat, you can do that. If you have crypto elsewhere, you can do that. If you need to swap and bridge to Tezos X or Etherlink, as it was formerly known, you can absolutely do that through each of these functions. I won't dig into that right now. But if you click on any of the assets, you can see what's gone on with those assets over the last little while, or all of the history that we've got from the price feed. You see some stats about the particular asset, a bit more detail about it if you're interested. You can dig into, proof of reserves. In the case of uranium, that comes straight from uranium.io. And you can see the buy and sell widget on the right-hand side here. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to sign out of this account because I don't want to spend time given we're short on that funding a wallet. But let me connect my wallet that I already have. Give me 1 sec. MetaMask is asking me to reload.
While you're doing that, Ben, something I noticed on the uranium chart is that it looks really smooth. Any uranium chart that I look up on the internet is, you got little dots and they're very spread out. Why is that?
I think it depends on the amount of price points that you're getting. So the uranium market, as I always talk about, predominantly trades OTC, right? And so there isn't actually a price fix per se. There are price estimates out there. So it depends on how frequently they're taking that information. At the same time, which, we've got the price feed, so that ticks every minute. So that feeds into this. At the same time, the other thing is a lot of people, when they look up uranium, will go to things like the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, which is a closed-ended investment trust that holds physical uranium, but trades as an equity and often trades at big premiums or discounts. And so consequently, there's much more volatility in those assets. So you aren't necessarily getting access to the pure spot asset. Actually, uranium probably has about the same amount of volatility, so the up and down movement, as the S&P 500, let's say. So I'm going to go in. I'm not going to, bid up my own book and buy uranium. You can see I've got a small amount of USDC in this wallet. If I just enter to buy 50% of my small amount of USDC, you see on the widget here, you can see if I click review, it will tell you exactly what I'm getting. You get to see the price impact. You can see the very small network fee. I can confirm that.
But by the way, let me add one thing. This is innovation. Like buying such a small amount, fractionalizing this amount. This is true innovation. And I forgot to say it before, but you're seeing it live. So, who allows you to buy a gram of gold? No, sorry, the gram is wrong. Like a 0.001 gram of gold. This is true innovation.
And it matters for a lot of different markets, right? That's the thing I keep thinking about, Giorgio. Like, yes, maybe it's like he's spending 50 cents, but like if you compare the Turkish lira, for example, you're looking at it's $1 to 45 liras. Like that's a bigger number for a lot of different countries. So it
but
just
in
helps
general,
get people
go
involved.
to a broker and say I want to buy 50 cents of a commodity. I don't know. I don't know. They're probably gonna block you. Like, what the hell is going on? Sorry, bye.
Sorry, that's all right. Live demo, Joys. I think I should have enough. So I've got enough to transact, but we need to pick that up with the team. But in the interest of time, let me go into my assets, and you can see here that you've got, your uranium here. If you need to withdraw it, again, you've got multiple withdrawal options to actually sell the assets and take funds out of it. Again, if you need to receive more, you can do that straight from here as well. And you can, of course, see all of your transaction history too. So it is that simple. I was getting an unexplained error, the joys of a live demo. But I promise you, for those that are trying it, it really is as simple as just connecting, having your wallet funded, and purchasing whichever metals you want to purchase.
It's that sketchy email you use, man.
Yeah, I think it probably is, honestly. But there we go. Cool. Hopefully that's enough action. Anything else I can follow up on?
Yeah. One question. I saw a little button that said upcoming next to borrow. What's that?
So upcoming, we've got in the pipeline silver coming up. We've got cobalt, nickel, and palladium as well, which before the end of the first half of this year, we'll also have assets on the platform for that. I think also we'll have, I think Alexander alluded to these earlier. We've got the borrowing for uranium. As many people know, the way you can post uranium as collateral, we want to do the same for all these other metals. Again, they're not very volatile relative to crypto assets and other digital assets. So actually you can get pretty good LTVs on those if you want to borrow USDC against them. So it's not an either or relative to other crypto trades for that audience. And then something I'm personally very excited about, because as you know, Action, I come from that traditional asset management world. The Vault side of things gets me very excited. So I expect that we'll be onboarding and launching Vault infrastructure pretty soon. And that will mean that, to Giorgio's earlier point, you aren't just choosing one specific metal or having to do your own portfolio allocation. We'll give you some default options where you can just buy that through having a Vault token and popping your USDC into a Vault.
That's awesome. All right. So you put this incredible platform together. Like, what is the main thing? Like, what do you think should be the priority here? Are we talking about the simplicity for retail? Are we talking about the depth of, for these institutions? Like, are things equally important when it comes to, taking care of both institutions and retail? Like, where does that land?
Yeah, look, I think the access point for retail is immediately kind of a big differentiator, right? And so that for me is exciting, but the things you've asked don't go in isolation, right? We'll get to a certain size where we can transact $100, $1,000, $10,000 clips without a problem. Actually, to make this really successful and have millions of users, which we hope to have one day, fingers crossed, it really needs that institutional scale to it. And so there's a little bit of a chicken and egg there in terms of the liquidity piece, but I think we're not short on the demand side. It's just how do we continue to build the trust piece? Uranium.io really well, Action. That's been going and next U308 has been going for almost 18 months. And it's taken that length of time to start to really see the engagement from an institutional perspective, because they want to see that track record before they kick you out the door just because you look new and you've mentioned uranium and tokenization and blockchain in the same sentence. I'm probably not going to touch this. That dynamic seems to be shifting. So I think for us, the actual transaction flow between, even in other asset classes, right? The actual transaction flow between an individual trader placing a trade on an investment platform and an institutional trader working at a trading desk for an asset management firm, the steps and the flow isn't that different, right? It's just who you have access to and how you access that. And I think what we hope to bridge with metals.io, could I see a more pro sort of view coming in at some point in the future? For those more sophisticated traders, potentially, could I see a sort of more controllable, from an admin rights perspective, platform version for institutions? Absolutely. API and programmatically being able to trade is super important too for those institutions. So there are a few things, but the core stack for all investors is broadly the same, and it's broadly built around the same tenets for any asset that we'll bring on the platform, right? It needs to be physically backed. It needs to be redeemable if we're talking about spot. And of course, we need to be able to provide some reasonable pricing and liquidity that feeds into that. But of course, those two go hand in hand.
Now, Alexander, if you're still with us, I want to kind of get back into this VNX Gold, because it's a pretty important thing, having that, verifiable, audited trust that it's actually there, like you were talking about. For what would you say are some of the advantages here for investors that are moving from a physical storage to a tokenized, but not only just tokenized, but an audited product like the one you guys have on the platform here? Like I know for a fact that I love holding gold. Don't get me wrong. Like Costco is my go-to when I want to get physical gold. Little bars are usually the best way to go there. But having it, in a platform that's tradable and a lot more liquid, like what would you say are some of the benefits here, in this safe haven type of scenario?
I think number one is all VNX tokens are backed by real physical gold. We have the function on the platform, which is called allocation lookup. And then the customer can actually connect the wallet and see to exactly which bars their tokens are linked to. So it could be, for example, Credit Suisse, whatever, or Vancambi, whatever. So they're really connected to real physical bars. We're audited both by the regulators in Liechtenstein, but we also do an independent audit. So at the end of the year, all the tokens are counted, all the gold is counted, and then the auditors generate the audit report. It's available on the platform as well. I think in terms of the advantages, it's actually 24/7 availability. So physical gold is not really real physical gold is not really easy to buy or sell. Most banks in Europe don't deal with it. Those banks that do, they actually operate typically in person, which means that you have to make an appointment, sometimes 2 weeks in advance, visit your vault. They will inspect the bars that you have. The commissions are actually pretty heavy. So to buy and to sell, you still need to pay a commission, even though it hasn't left the vault of the bank. Still, the bank will charge you this. And given that it's not so easy, you need to plan in advance. If you're not in Switzerland, you actually need to fly to meet with your private bankers, etc., etc. I think tokenized gold provides this ease of transactions. With VNX Gold, you can trade 24/7 on metals.io. Hopefully, there will be additional pools. You can, lend, borrow. You can go on the VNX platform. You can trade against Euro, Swiss franc. You can trade against Bitcoin, Ethereum, or USDC, and you can go in or out instantaneously. So I think these are the key advantages of the tokenized gold, but of course, fractionalization, I think, is also one of the key advantages, and it's been already discussed.
No, I love that. Giorgio, let me go back to you because you were kind of talking about this, and then I saw it on screen when Ben was going through the demo there. I saw a rare basket. How do you think this rare basket kind of helps investors gain exposure to, I guess you can say, hard to access metals? But not only that, like, how does it compare to, right? Because you have these traditional critical minerals or rare earth funds, and they feel like it's great, but it's also like a black box to a certain extent. How does this differ?
So how does this differ? It differs in everything. Let me explain you why by default how it's done. Because being like a tokenized basket. So first we can just repeat what we said, but I would like to. So no gates, easily accessible. You can buy with crypto, you can buy with fiat because the platform allows that. It will be allowed maybe in the future, like a function for borrowing, lending, which is something that, using it as collateral, which you cannot do. And it gives the possibility of accessing to all the DeFi protocols, all the DeFi system, all the smart contract, everything that you want. And so by design, how it's done, and as we are the first one who did that, and they had this idea, it opens it differs in full as it's been done. Sorry, I'm trying to make myself more clear. You can have an ETF of rare earth metals, fine. What are you going to do with that? Nothing. It's going to be very complicated that someone allows you to put this as a collateral, or just pull out just a small part. With this, the basket that we have, as per the blockchain, we have all the access to all the possibilities. And again, possibilities are almost infinite. Just that as we were discussed before, the fragmentation and the possibility of accessing just a little bit is just in my opinion, it's mind-blowing. And to all the people of traditional finance is mind-blowing. So that's the main difference. Being already on the blockchain, it has that plus that is just not a plus, it's a plus, because we can literally speak for 12 hours about the advantages of having this kind of product on the blockchain and the blockchain itself. So by default, it's already a better product than anything else. At least under my point of view, as you know, disruptor technologist. Call me as you want.
You've redeemed yourself from saying that you're a lawyer, man. I love your take on this.
I am a lawyer still, but yeah, you know, I'm a different one. I'm a lawyer that codes. So yes.
Crispin, let me ask you a quick question. You got these
Sure.
three big assets, right, that we're talking about here. You got that stock hedge in gold. You got the technology growth with rare, and you have that energy security with uranium.
Yeah.
What's the synergy between it all? Like, what should investors know about these three?
I think if you kind of broaden what synergies means, I think, you know, you look at like themes or constraints that are the world today, they're very synergistic. You know, where we are, we're in a tough macro environment. Energy security is absolutely key. And we know there's a big like AI tech build out that's happening around the world. So the synergies are, gold for monetary policy, uranium for energy security, and rare earth for AI tech. And just kind of looking at the constraints on the world, and kind of those are the common themes that are happening.
Got it. So essentially, it's staying up to date with actually what's going on in the world. You find that in these three buckets.
Exactly. No, that's it. Yeah.
And look, I don't know which bank coined the phrase or which analyst coined the phrase, but you're seeing it all over the financial press and Wall Street more broadly, right? About the halo trade, whether that's re-entering Japan or whatever that might look like for different investors. But that halo trade being, you know, hard assets with low obsolescence or heavy assets, depending on your perspective. Either way, for me, as Crispin rightly outlined, gold is that classic sort of hedge against tail risk and the dollar debasement scenarios, geopolitical shocks, and that flight to quality. You're getting the growth exposure through these rare earths, which is sort of secular demand driven. So it doesn't matter if it's, of course, nuclear energy, but AI demand from rare earths as well. You know, things like hafnium are critical in nuclear. EV adoption, offshore wind deployment. I mean, defense modernization and robotics.
Military,
I don't like talking about defense necessarily, given the current macro environment, but there's a hard fact to that, no pun intended. That these minerals and metals are critical for that, and then the final piece is obviously uranium and the energy security piece, which is a logical extension of some of the challenges we've seen with the Iran conflict and things like that around gas and oil. I think people are taking more seriously that secular trend around could nuclear be the alternative to ensuring energy security. And so it's really societal demands that drive the demand for these assets. And so this is it's a literal and quite important picks and shovels trade, I would say, for most people. Of course, people should do their own research and make their own decisions, but you know, I think that's why I get so excited and feel quite lucky to be the one leading these efforts.
No, that's incredible. Now we're getting close to the top of the hour here. I think we have 5 minutes left. Let's have a little fun. In you guys' opinion, when it comes to different metal categories, what do you see as the most credible when it comes to essentially layering your diversification of a portfolio? Where would you recommend people take a look into? Is there anything specific that you think is worthwhile investing in? And when I say investing your time to actually learn what this thing actually is. What I usually tell people, like, don't put your money in things you don't understand. At least start out by actually investing your time and understanding what you're putting your money into. Anyone?
I think related to that is metals.io. You can pick a theme and invest in a theme, right? So if you want to invest in, electrification, for example, then they're not on there currently, but they will be soon. Things like copper, aluminium, right? So that's what's not available to most investors, including retail right now. If you want to pick, AI tech, you can invest in rare earth. So I think like pick a theme, and then metals.io allows you to invest in those, and you can quickly move between them and rebalance your portfolio. So not exactly an answer to your question, Action, but like just a kind of a general comment on, where I see the value of something like a metals.io.
All right, financial advice from the lawyer. I'm totally kidding. This is definitely not financial advice.
Please, no. I honestly don't know. What I can say is that we have an amazing product, which I really believe in. Like we worked so hard to bring this advantage to a market that was gray, that it was gated, disastrous, if you want my take. So I really believe in all the products of metals.io. That's what I can tell you. There's a lot of people that they hate driving, but they buy Teslas. Why? Because they like the idea, they like the car, they like innovation. So what I can tell you is, I'm not a trader by default. I'm a lawyer, right? So what I can tell you is that I believe a lot in the in the technology and in the innovation. So what I look, it's not really, but what's gonna happen? I mean, yeah, of course I do. But if I have to give you like a quick overview on where would I go, it would be the product that has more technology attached to it. So this is great. Like there is like an advantage in all the kind of fields we just spoke about. There is the scarcity because like by default the metals that they are, and attached to it there's all the innovation, the technology of the blockchain. So in my opinion, you don't have to look anywhere else. So you don't have to do that much of like study. There is already people, analysts, who did the study for you. So do you like the technology? Do you like the innovation? Go for it. That would be my most honest take and advice. I hope that I was clear enough, I really like the product. That's the bottom line. So I would go for that.
I think I'll add a little bit of a lens on how we think about what we look at as we prioritize what's coming next on metals.io, right? And I think it's done through a lens of what we think is most relevant for folks. So does it have a strong macro tailwind? Is it constrained supply? Does it have poor investor access? And does it have custody frameworks that can be built to institutional standards? If it ticks those boxes, then it becomes something that's a candidate for the platform. And so as I look at it, to be more specific, I think something like silver is super interesting because it's got both gold-like characteristics and characteristics of industrial metals. That creates some unusual behavior. And so I think that kind of is an interesting dynamic. PGMs, again, because of those geographic restrictions, but their importance in terms of the need for hydrogen fuel cells and catalytic converters. So things like palladium and platinum, hence why that's coming up next. And of course, to plug another couple that are coming up next in terms of energy transition metals, copper, nickel, cobalt. I think assuming you can get the access to those credible institutional grade partners like Steinweg, like Metal, which we, by the way, have, which is great. I think, again, they become super interesting assets for people to think about from a diversification perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, nickel's doing pretty well, in my opinion. I guess you can say it's on a roll. No. None of that. All right, guys.
I appreciated it.
Terrible. Did you? I mean, I tried telling uranium jokes before, but there was no reaction.
Indeed.
That's a good one, actually. It's a dad joke, though.
I got 3, man. I can get away with those.
Yes. There you go. Congrats.
All right. So if you could, to close out, let's make this where we're headed and what kind of where we're looking at. Like, if you could design the ideal, metal exposure portfolio, and maybe Ben will kind of give anybody a chance to kind of build these later on. It's like, hey, this is the Giorgio portfolio. You want to invest in this bucket? For like, let's say 5 years, right? Because we're always looking, at least for me, for metals, I'm looking long term. What kind of metal mix would you kind of have in there? Anything that stands out? Anything that you guys are, a bucket? Because I know, Crispin, you were like, I can't pick just one.
No, I can't pick just one because I think, obviously not financial advice, but I think for me right now, next 2 to 5 years, 20% gold, I would say probably 40% uranium, 30% like copper, aluminium, 10% rare earth. So then you're getting exposure, like protection with the gold investment for monetary policy. You're getting energy security. You're getting electrification, and then lastly AI tech.
Yeah.
That's a good bucket right there.
Yeah.
But is there a but?
No, but not a but and in using something like metals.io, the platform is easily modify that as the years go by. But clearly that's the big value of that. But yeah, that would be my model portfolio today.
No, I love that. And hearing that there's more coming, right? Like I was excited when I heard about gold to begin with, because like anytime you see gold kind of skyrocketing, you can say it's a precious moment. And you want to take Ben laughed. You guys said it was okay, so I'm going for it. But it's having that access to be able to do what Ben was just showing us, being able to buy 50 cents worth of something. I think that's really the game changer for me.
Yes.
Like what I love doing is like, you know what? I'm not going to get a cup of coffee outside. I'm going to get that money and put it into something else. Like the possibilities are endless, and the upside potential for somebody, buying a cup of coffee versus investing, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. It adds up, I guess the best way that I can say it. It's something that you're going to consume, and you can actually get much cheaper for 25 cents at home versus spending your $5-6 at your local Starbucks. I'd much rather have that, value in a precious metal versus a cup of coffee that's just going to go down the drain soon enough. To kind of close us out here, where do they go? What can people kind of get into? What's the best way to get involved in all of this that we just talked about, Ben?
Yeah, www.metals.io, of course. Sorry, Ben, I cut you off.
Very simple. It's a very simple URL. We spent a lot of time ensuring that we got this URL. So metals.io is the best place. As you saw, we've got the blogs on there. We've got all the FAQs. We've got a live chat in the support center or semi-live. As I always mention, we're a lean and mean team, so don't expect us to be having an offshore customer support team just yet. And yet, Metals Official on X is also the other place where we post our announcements and things that we're doing. But metals.io is absolutely the right place to be going.
I love to hear it, guys. Thank you so much. It's been an incredible conversation. People used to say that trading metals was tough, but you guys are definitely stealing the competition.
Very good. Good one.
All right, I'm done. I promise you guys, I'm done. This has been fun. I really do appreciate it, guys.
It was nice. I liked it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
This has been phenomenal. Please, if you guys had a chance to kind of take a look at what these guys are up to, check them out on socials. They're literally everywhere, from your YouTubes to X's of the world to LinkedIn. Plenty of information out there if you want to see not only who they are, but also what they're all working on. So thank you all so much. It's been a phenomenal conversation. I can't say how impressed I always am with how you all just come to the table with so much knowledge and information to share. So thank you again, and I can't wait to do this again.
Brilliant. Thank you, Action.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us the
Bye-bye.
time and the opportunity. Thank you so much for everyone.
Absolutely. Have a great one, everyone.
Hey, what's up?
But it's not something Gensio is afraid of.
If you want to survive, you got to build a house.
You know you do not understand.
Ladies and gentlemen.
We're back at the Gensio Media House.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today.